Sup fellow nerds, it's good to see you. Well, I can't actually see you as I'm just a spooky voice, but that's not important. Today, let's have a look at some of the biggest questions we have after Series 13 of Doctor Who, otherwise known as Flux. As to expect with this era, we've been left with many a stone unturned, and since we've only got 3 romps left with Jodie and Chibbers at the helm, there's a lot of ground to cover. If you're just finding my channel right now, then why not check out my reviews for the individual chapters of Series 13 and for Series 13 as a whole? You could also subscribe if you're feeling so kind. It is Christmas after all. Anyway, let's talk about things we need to know. Who really are Swarm and Azure? So our main baddies this year were Swarm and Azure, excellently portrayed but hollow in their execution. I've got a couple more questions regarding those to come, but the first one would simply revolve around who they really were. We got some idea thanks to the whole flashback sequence in Once Upon a Time, but most of it was all really quite vague. We do know that they're ravages and have a history with Division and subsequently the Doctor, but that felt like it was it. For characters that were so well realised by their actors, they're getting a massive disservice thanks to their weak source material. Moving on. Why were Swarm and Azure imprisoned separately? After their run-in with Division, it seems the pair were separated and given 2 different sentences, even though it seems they're both as powerful and as ruthless as each other. Swarm was imprisoned on some rogue asteroid with Division agents checking in, while Azure was imprisoned somewhere else, that we'll get to. Was there more to the story after their capture? Did Azure tattle a little and get a reduced sentence or something? Why was Azure hidden with, I assume, a Division operative in Chapter 1? In a house in the middle of the Arctic Circle were these 2 assumedly Division agents ignoring a warning drone which I also assume was sent as a recall for all operatives since the Flux was inbound. Swarm, after escaping his imprisonment, rocks up, dissolves the bloke and assumedly frees Azure? Perhaps she was hidden from him to keep them apart. Makes sense, but we weren't actually told anything. No surprises there. It is the same actress playing the human Azure and blue Azure, so maybe that's correct? Will we see the Ravages again? Their quote-unquote death at the hands of time was definitely left open. Swarm implied ascendance and we didn't overtly see them die, I guess. I would like to see them come back. As said, they were magnificently portrayed and they deserve to have more of a concrete grounding within the Whoniverse. Will we see any more of time? So yeah, time has been anthropomorphized in Doctor Who now. Who'd have thunk it? It seems like such a strange direction to go in, so I'm hoping we don't see it again. I hope we can just forget that time can even have a face. Why was the Tardis leaking, malfunctioning, breaking, etc.? As the Flux rode into town, our trusty Tardis started to have a few problems, from new crystals forming, doors appearing where they shouldn't be, and a strange goop leaking everywhere. Not much else was said about it. Looking at the promos for Eve of the Daleks, the Tardis is breaking on the outside too, so there's a chance this will be explained in the new year, but it was still something that was brought up and left behind in Series 13. What was really going on inside our favourite blue box? How much of the universe was destroyed in the end? Speaking of the Flux, we know it set out to annihilate absolutely everything, but it didn't get that far. It was stopped, but how much devastation did it leave in its wake? How much of the universe is really left? Earth seemed to go completely back to normal, and we didn't see much more of the universe than that. That also begs the question, was the universe restored off-screen? Some are pointing to the lack of clarity on the previous question as fact that the universe was restored, but we simply didn't see it. While it's not surprising that something as important as this could be left on the cutting room floor in this era, I don't think it's the case that things were suddenly hunky-dory again without us seeing it, and honestly, I don't think Chibnall is that stupid. If not, can the Flux be reversed at all? Definitely something to keep in mind going forward. Will we see the effects of the Flux plaguing stories for years to come in the same way that Time War did between 2005 and, 2013? If not, will the Doctor somehow reverse it? There was a line of dialogue during the scenes in the Division Void ship that implied it could be done, but we didn't see it. Perhaps this becomes the Doctor's plan for Specials 2 and 3 next year. Restore the universe and find out who Division are. Speaking of which, what happened to Division? With Tech Taeyoon heading up this shifty lot, she finds herself killed by Swarm, and then there's only the poor Rude left. Maybe he's in charge now. We didn't get a good idea of the sheer scale of that Void ship, so we don't know how many operatives were ready and waiting to move over to Universe 2, and that's if any of them even made it. Did the Flux failing and Tech Taeyoon kicking it signify the end of Division? We're not quite sure. Then again, we're not quite sure about anything revolving around Division because mystery is mystery, but not having the grounding behind something so big in the grand scheme of things isn't mystery. It's bad writing. Why was Diane the only person left within Passenger? Apparently, Di was insignificant to Swarm and Azure, that is all we got. One-liner reasons with no meat was a pretty standard thing for this era, but there was potentially more here. Or I'm just reading way too deep into this. Nadia Albina, hope I'm saying that right, Diane's actress, was born without a fully developed right arm, and there were the pricks who pointed out her casting as for purely woke reasons, not because of her acting resume including the RSC and the National Theatre, no, not at all. Perhaps her quote-unquote insignificance was in relation to her disability, and the rousing speech of being not insignificant was left on the cutting room floor. As much as that message is important in the grand scheme of things, based on the incredibly on-the-nose messages we've had in recent years of Who, leaving it out was probably for the better. Will the Doctor open her fob watch? No, I don't think she will. The scene of her dropping it into the Tardis definitely implies we'll see it again soon, or it was just added as pure closure for this potential arc. With the surrounding of this fob watch so poorly realised, I don't think Chibnall will want to open yet another can of worms to further water down the soup that is the pre-Hartnell era he's irritatingly decided to explore. That's unless something comes up that requires her to know what happened, even though the watch opening the first time didn't restore shit. Will we see the Fugitive Doctor again? Absolutely, I'd say. We saw a lot less of her in Flux than I think we all expected, and if things are going to veer back into the direction of working out who Division are come the end of 2022, she will surely rock up again. What about the Grand Serpent? Nah, I think he's done. Winningly being exiled to a rock either implies an ulterior motive, or he's been thoroughly beaten and can't be asked anymore. Since his arc thing was kind of tied up with Vinder, I think he's done. He failed. Bye-bye. How are the Daleks back if they were supposedly destroyed? We know we're up against my favourite pepper pots as the new year rolls around, but weren't they all destroyed in part of the Sontaran's master plan? Yes, we know that Daleks always survive, but amidst a genuine universe-ending threat, I wouldn't be surprised if all the Daleks rocked up in some vain grab at survival. So how are they here? Were there designated survivor Daleks, or have these guys been hiding on Earth this entire time? Still waiting on some closure on that Dalek-y-looking building in Resolution, Chris. So, those are a bunch of questions we have going into the final straight of the Chibnall era. Will we get closure on any of these? Only time will tell. Anything I've missed? Let me know in the comments section below. Subscribe if you enjoyed this video, as next up I'll be looking at Eve of the Daleks in the new year. Are you excited? I know I am. Thank you very much for watching. The warm welcome back to YouTube from you lot this year has been fantastic, and I cannot thank you enough. Have a wonderful holiday season, whatever it is you're celebrating, and have a lovely new year. As always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next year.